Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight on a Bortnikov fragrance, and I decided to do this because number one, there is a collaboration coming out between Dmitry Bortnikov and his good friend Russian Adam, the two founders of Feel Oud, and they are releasing a trio of new Feel Oud scents. And so to get ready for that, I want to review some of these Bortnikovs that I have not talked about on the channel. I did an entire Areej Dore week about a week or two ago. So there's a ton of new Areej videos and new content for people who haven't been on the channel lately. And I want to do some Bortnikovs because I really respect Bortnikov's work. And this is one that really took me back. I've had a chance now to wear it to bed a couple times. Well, this is the second time, actually, not so a couple times counting today. And again, it's just one of these little lucky scent, a mil at the most, I think. I think this is 1 mil. And this is called Triad. Now, special thank you to my good friend Hari for sending me this very precious juice. And I think it was Hari who sent me this. But to all my perfume god people who send me stuff, thank you very much. It would be very hard to do videos on so many scents. I don't have the ability to. I don't have a bottle of this, obviously, but I will tell you right off the bat, before we get into it, I think this is full bottle worthy. Will I buy a bottle? That's a different question, and we'll maybe get into that later as well. But first, I want to do a quick unboxing, and I just want to do this unboxing. I actually bought this on the fly, and the reason that I bought this was because I had tested a scent from this house called Jean Charles de Castelbajac JCC number 2, and it was a 1988 release for women. And my review is actually on the channel from a couple days back, about a week ago maybe. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the quality was outstanding. And it's a house that gets almost no talk in Fragcom. So what I did is I just kind of looked on eBay real quick, and I found this. It's a vintage Jean Charles de Castelbajac from 1982. It's not the women's one that I did the video on a couple days ago. It's actually the masculine scent. So they had a masculine scent that came out in 1982, and it was called Jean Charles de Castelbajac, which I really feel like you have to say Castelbajac, but I can't help myself. But love the bottle. Look at the bottle. It's classy. And this came out in 1982. This is a splash. And I am so excited to get to... This is the exact kind of stuff that I like to take a chance on, especially since I got it for a very fair price. Oh, I think we're going to have a winner. It's hard to tell sometimes smelling a splash, but you really have to apply it to skin. But I will decant this into an atomizer. For those interested, there is the bottom, sorry. Obviously, I've been showing you the bottle. Division of, what's that say? Peyote, fragrance division of Peyote Inc. Cantaline Inc., a division of Peyote Inc. For all you lovers of hunting down the different distributors. Those are some new ones to me. I'm not familiar with these two. I'm sure there's someone out there who knows the history, but I don't. But I know that I got very lucky with this. There was, I think, only one on eBay. And actually, before I did the video talking highly of JCC number 2, I was like, I'm going to buy this first, because I know as soon as I do the video, someone's going to beat me to it, and then I'm going to be upset. So I just went and blind bought this, and I could not be, well, I don't know if I'll be happy with it, but I'm guessing I will be, just from the notes. The notes are, it's woody, earthy, spicy, and green. It opens up with aldehydes, artemisia, juniper, basil, green notes, and bergamot, with cedarwood, geranium, sandalwood, carnation, patchouli, and pine needles. And the kicker that really got me to just blind buy it is the base has both frankincense, oak moss, castoreum, and leather, with musk and tonka bean. But it was the castoreum really that made me go, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger on it. So very excited. There's nothing about it written on Parfumo. But I don't know how long it was distributed. What's interesting is it says that it was last marketed by Mulhens, and Mulhens was the distributor who actually had the JCC number 2. When if you watch that video, I show the back of the bottle that Armando sent me very kindly. Shout out to him. And it was a Mollhens distributor, and it was made in West Germany. So even the Mollhens distributor of JCC number 2 was older. And so this must be even an older bottle from the Mollhens, if Mollhens actually made Jean-Charles de Castelbajac for men from 82. So very, very excited. And at the price I got this for, I got it for an absolute steal. If this turns out to be as good as I think it is, a find for the Ram, and exactly the kind of stuff that I like. Okay, so before we do the Triad early impression video, I want to share my scent of the day, because I wore this to work today, and my God, I honestly think this is the best Vetiver fragrance ever of all time. Like, I always knew, I thought Guerlain's Vetiver was the best. And, you know, but sometimes you would wear something that, like Encre Noir. Sometimes I just love Encre Noir, which is crazy. Some people know how cheap that fragrance is, but it just goes to show expensive fragrance doesn't always mean good. There's some cheapies that you just resonate with, right? And Roja's Vetiver, and I've done an entire video on Vetiver if you want to kind of check out some of the Vetivers I have in my collection. But this one in particular, this is the first time I've given this a full wear. I bought this from Armando as well. And this is actually the Eau de Cologne. They discontinued the Eau de Cologne version of Guerlain's Vetiver in the 90s, I believe. So this is an Eau de Cologne version of Guerlain's Vetiver, and my God, it is glorious. I mean, I was at work today, like, just smiling all day. It's perfect for the office. This is actually, if you said, Ramsey, I want the perfect signature scent for someone that goes to work in like a collared shirt, you know, let's say business professional or casual or full casual, or you know, whatever you want to call it, business casual, or even, you know, like full casual. Like if you wear a suit, this would also work beautifully. This would be probably my choice. You could not, I don't think you can get any posher on the Vetiver scene than this. It has everything. It's like it shows every facet of Vetiver beautifully. And then that freshness, the way that Guerlain sort of, I don't know how he did it, but just the way that Jean-Paul Guerlain sort of mixed these amazing citruses in, the bergamot and the lemon and the orange and the nutmeg and sort of the pepperiness, and then it gets into that deeper, heavier, darker, slightly earthier aspects of Vetiver. That is one thing that's a little different about this compared to the one that I've been showing on the channel recently, which is this one. This is the one that I've had for a long time. And this one goes, this version from the early 2000s, much more fresh cut grass, much less of sort of the darker, deeper, nuttier, earthier aspects of Vetiver that come out in the base here, along with the tobacco. It could also be the tobacco is a little more turned up here. Maybe they thought tastes had changed a little bit into the 2000s and they needed to make this a little bit fresher. They're both glorious. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong either way. But if you're someone who really likes the intricacies and the details, the Eau de Cologne version of Guerlain's Vetiver is to die for good. So anyways, enough tooting Guerlain Vetiver's horn, but I thoroughly enjoyed wearing that today. Okay, so let's talk about Triad. So, like I said earlier, there's going to be no mystery on how I feel about this scent. This is a winner for the House of Bortnikoff. And it's interesting because the opening, for me, is an absolute 5-star opening, I would say. Triad is an absolutely glorious opening. It's an extrait de parfum. It came out in 2020. And it's got multiple types of oud in there. So they say that the opening, the top note is Sri Lankan oud, okay? But to my nose, what really hits me initially are those Dmitry Bortnikov, almost like patented florals that he uses so well. And, you know, I pulled out a bottle of his, just, I mean, everyone's sort of seen the Bortnikov bottles. They're all the same. But I specifically pulled this one out because this is an example of him using the florals. This Oud Monarch. This is a vintage bottle of Oud Monarch with the wooden cap. But you can see the top is Magnolia and Frangipani. And everyone, when they talk about Oud Monarch, they talk about the chocolate and the oud, the cacao and the oud. And rightly so, right? But the way that he blended in those florals in the opening, I think, is a stroke of genius, a master stroke. And he did basically the same thing with Triad. I mean, he has a DNA. He has his style that he obviously likes to use. And so with Triad, what he ended up mixing in are two florals. One is the May Rose, okay? And the other is Magnolia. And you saw in this, in Oud Monarch, it was Magnolia and it was Frangipani. So he really likes using Magnolia, as you can see. And but the Rose de Mai in particular in this scent from the beginning comes off extremely rich in color. It's almost like the rose is so vibrant and bright. You can see like the water petals like just forming, or the beads of water, forming after the rose gets watered on the flower itself. And it just seems so alive and bright and vibrant and beautiful pink. When I close my eyes and I think about the opening with that Rose de Mai so brilliantly sharp, and just, in complete focus, almost like you ever look through like a really high-end camera. Remember in the old days, you had to almost sometimes focus the camera yourself, and then as the camera technology caught up, it was like a big innovation that the camera self-focuses, right? Just imagine looking through the lens and it's blurry, and then the camera just sort of like does that, electronic sound swirl, that whoosh, and all of a sudden, bam, everything is in perfect focus. That's how the rose feels in here. And when I close my eyes, I can really see this beautiful rosy pink color in my mind when I smell this. And, the first time I smelled this composition, as you guys know, I like to sort of just play this game with myself and just sort of not look at the notes and just sort of guess what I think is in there. And I made a note that there's jasmine in here. I thought for sure there was jasmine. I thought this was his take on like a oud jasmine rose, right? And when I didn't see jasmine, I was like, oh man, I'm kind of almost let down on myself, because I was certain there was some jasmine in here. And, but it's not. It's actually magnolia. And what's interesting is, so magnolia grows all over Texas and Louisiana, which is where my wife's from. And many of the times perfumers use magnolia to sort of tone down that jasmine accord, interestingly enough. So it sort of has this sweet floral vibe. So magnolia basically takes sometimes that jasmine accord that can be seen as like too much, that indolic, animalic, almost challenging jasmine. And if you blend it with magnolia, it really sort of tones it down. It brings it down to an even keel level. And magnolia gives off this slightly fruity, almost champagne-like aroma. And so if you've ever read the briefs on some of the fruity champagne, you know how some of those sommeliers or wine connoisseur magazine write a brief on a champagne, and they're like sparkling notes of apricot mixed with earthy plum when you taste, and they basically say the same thing about champagne and wine that we say about perfume. Because I'm sure someone out there is like, oh, you should have seen these guys. They're like, you can pick up May Rose and Magnolia in here, and so they do the same thing with wine and champagne. But imagine reading the brief on one of those like fruity champagnes, and that will get you in the ballpark of what magnolia smells like. So even though so far me describing the scent, I've focused on the florals, the only reason I did was because I really appreciate Dmitry Bortnikoff's style. I think most people will not focus on the florals initially. I think they'll probably focus on that animalic oud. And, what's interesting is, because Dmitry Bortnikoff has this unique ability, I almost think of it like his superpower. Dmitry Bortnikoff has an amazing array of mastery of florals. Somehow, either, it's just God-given gift, or just the way he ended up blending things together really worked for him and he stuck with it. But I love the way he blends the florals in his compositions. And, but I think what most people will focus on when they smell this fragrance is this animalic oud opening. And not just animalic oud, but also animalics and oud, because both of them will play a part in this composition. And so it's also woody. The oud gives it this, majestic woodiness, if you will. And the oud that stands out to me initially, the very first time I smelled it, and I would have had zero frame of reference for this wood, for this oud, if not for this. Because there is a fragrance in the History of Oud collection that Russian Atom actually put out called The History of Chinese Oud. And inside of Triad, there is an organic Hainan Chinese oud oil. Okay? And if you actually look right here, I don't know if he talks about, yeah, he just talks about a little bit about the distillation, wild Chinese agarwood, extremely rarity. Yes, and so this is an organic Chinese oud. So I don't know if that means it comes from a plantation or if it is wild. I'm not really 100% sure on what organic means when they are describing oud yet. That's something that still sort of confuses me. But the oud is this organic Chinese oud. And so what you get is, if you've heard me describe Chinese oud, or even this one, if you've heard me describe the actual Chinese oud, the one that came out a couple years ago, before the history of Chinese oud. These are two different Chinese ouds, but they both use, I think, a similar wild Chinese oil. And I'll be curious to know if in Triad, Bortnikoff is using that same oil, if they kind of have a supplier from somebody that they know and trust, and they're both getting to use the oil, or if it's something Russian Atom just sort of secured for himself. But it's unlike any oud oil I've ever smelled, honestly. And I am not standing up here claiming to be some oud head, because I'm turning into an oud head, but I'm not an oud connoisseur to the point where I can fall back on 10 or 20 years of experience, unfortunately. And oud's only really been brought to the West for the last 20 years anyways. So unless people were there on the ground floor, almost no one has 20 years unless you're like Ensar Oud or something like that. In the West, right? In the Middle East, that's a different story. But I have never smelled an oud that does what this oud does. It's earthy. It has that mushroom-like earthy vibe to it. And it's extremely ashy. It's almost like this ashy incense. But the combination of animalics, almost like you're burning ashy civet, with this animalic, mushroomy earthiness to the oud. I've never smelled an oud that smells like this. And it's absolutely glorious. For someone who loves animalics, it is glorious. And when you blend it with the other ouds in here, Sri Lankan oud, Indonesian oud, it really creates an oud aura. And there's also Thai oud in the base, I think. So there's like 4 different types of oud in this perfume, if I'm not mistaken. And the ouds in here are just absolutely glorious to me. And the animalics themselves also really stand out because he uses Hyraceum in here, which is a very hard material for a perfumer to use. I feel like one tiny drop too much and it ruins everything. And it's very hard, I feel like, to balance Hyraceum properly. And the very first time I smelled Triad, Triad, not Dryad. Dryad was the Papillon fragrance I reviewed a couple weeks ago. The very first time I smelled Triad, I initially thought of 2 things, right? The Chinese oud, and also this. This is Fiona by Suga Parfums, who I think he's unfortunately closing up shop. So I'm glad I got 2 of these. I wish I would have just bought a full bottle, but I got 2 of these little discovery atomizers. And this is almost like the animalic fragrance for animalic fragrance lovers. Look at the color of the juice there. It's absolutely glorious. And he claims to use real castoreum, real Hyraceum, real civet, all this. Bunch of different types of ambergrisses, a bunch of different types of ouds, you know, all kind of stuff. Animalic florals, everything that you can think of. And maybe because of the fact that he used Hyraceum in a pretty decent size block. There's muskrat, there's skunk accord, there's onycha, which I think is the seashell distillation. Very popular in like Indian attars. There's all kind of stuff in here. All kind of amazing animalics. Like for an animalic lover, there's real Siberian deer musk in here. For an animalic lover, Fiona is a must try, honestly, in my opinion. It's one of my favorite animalic fragrances. and instantly Triad brought me in that neighborhood. But the difference is that James Barry is a newer perfumer, and I'm not saying that Dmitry Bortnikov is some master perfumer or anything like that, but what I am saying is that he has this way with florals. And so while I enjoy the Champaka, the Frangipani, the Ylang Ylang, the Pink Lotus, all the different types of florals that James Barry put into Fiona, he doesn't have the ability to do that floral gift. He doesn't have that gift like Bortnikov has. And so Triad, for me, does exactly what Fiona does, but it does it in a way where you get that masterful Bortnikov floral blending that I've come to just love. I've just come to absolutely love it. And I can't wait to see what the Phil Oud compositions bring to the table. Could you imagine Russian Adam and his love of animalics mixed with Bortnikov's brilliant floral compositions? Oh my, I mean, it's almost drool-worthy. Just take my wallet, Phil Oud. Just take it. Take my money. It's, and Fiona, by the way, also has this goat's hair tincture. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but they tincture goat's hair. And there's all kind of amazing animalics in there. If you've never smelled Fiona, do it. Give it a try. I don't know what is going on with the House of Suga, but rumor is he's maybe trying to sell the house to someone else and be done with it. I don't know what's going on, but if you love animalics, try Fiona. And so once the fragrance continues to dry, I've got about a 6-hour dry down here. And so once the base begins to dry, it brings in this very creamy, warm, sweet, sensual benzoin. And it never gets away. What's amazing to me is the mysteriousness and the depth of the animalic oud and the mysterious and the depths of the animalics themselves. They both never really lose their mojo, okay? They both hang on. They both say, I'm still here, while that warm, sweet, creamy, sort of resinous benzoin base takes over. And with the Tonka. And this is one of the reasons why, this is a perfect example of why I have such a hard time with designer Tonka scents now, because when you smell Tonka done properly, it's very hard to go back and wear something like Fève Delicious. It's just extremely hard, you know. I know there are people out there that love Fève, and if you do, I'm sorry. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one. I think it's an absolute shite scent. But designer Tonka has such a hard time competing with what these guys are doing. And you could say, oh, well, they're just people who are relying on the ingredients. So, I mean, I'd rather have somebody who relies on the ingredients and gives me real ingredients than someone who takes a bunch of pictures and puts a bunch of ingredients on their advertisements, you know, a big chunk of oud, real rose de mai, and real, you know, all of these rare rose flowers and all of this stuff, and then you do the GCMS research on it and there's nothing in there. That's what you usually get from the designers. Unfortunately, it's unfortunate. Whereas here, I really think you're at least getting, I think that with the perfume industry and the way that it is, 90 mils, $90 for 9 mils of this, of Triad, is extremely fair. If you really love it, you could go for the full 50 mil bottle for 350 bucks. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's full bottle worth. Excuse me, will I buy a bottle? That is a tougher question, because I have Fiona. I actually have 2 bottles of Fiona, and the new Phil Oud compositions are coming out, which I would love to buy at least 1 or 2 of those. So, am I going to go buy a bottle of Triad now? Oh, I would love a bottle, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to be glad I got a chance to wear it and enjoy it, and I still have some more here if I want to throw it on before bed or something sometime, but man, oh, if you like his work, like if this is a return to form for him, if you will, you know, if you like stuff like the Oud Maximuses, the Oud Monarchs of the world, the Lao Ouds, Triad is full bottle worthy. I'll tell you that right now. Just it is. You know, it absolutely is. Or at least this batch is. This came out in 2020, so I don't know if this is an older or a newer one. That's the only problem with these little Lucky Scent vials. There's some big pros and cons to these. The The con is you can't spray it, which I hate having to dab it on, to be fair. But the pro is that I could throw this in a box, come back 5 years later, and this seals up really tight, so it's not going to evaporate juice on you. Whereas some of the sprayers will sort of evaporate over time. So this thing, while there's some hate to it, there's also some love. You have to at least be glad that it seals up the juice nice and tight. So that is my take on Triad. If anyone has experience with this, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. As always, again, before we go, I do want to just say thank you to everybody who subscribed to the channel and who got us to the 4,000 subscriber mark. That may not seem a lot to some channels out there or some people out there, but it is to me. And honestly, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm completely happy with my 4,000 subs. I'm very grateful for every single one of them, and I'm going to do sort of a thank you 4,000 subscriber thank you video either tomorrow or Saturday. So that's why I'm just doing these late night insight videos. In the meantime, getting that list ready, I'm really racking my brain trying to make sure I do it correctly, you know, to the way that I feel like it should be done. So more Bortnikov NSAR releases, you know, reviews to come. Either tomorrow, there'll probably be, you know, one more early impression video or something like that, and then we'll either do the 4,000 subscriber thank you video tomorrow evening or Saturday sometime during the day, because I'm going to need time, because it's going to be a top 100. So pray for me. But anyways, I very much appreciate everybody who has supported the channel. Seriously, thank you. I can't say thank you enough. It means I had no... When I started the channel, I used to say, oh, I do these videos if one person watched them. If even one person got something out of it, I was happy. So to have 4,000 subscribers a year and a half later is still sort of mind-blowing to me for someone that doesn't even know how to use a computer or do any editing. All I know how to do is click play and then click stop and upload the damn video. That's the extent of my YouTube knowledge. So anyways, so thank you everybody. It's been a great 18 months. Many more years ahead is what I foresee. Love talking about fragrances with you guys, and love discovering. I mean, stuff like this is why I do it. No, there are no channels out there talking about Jean-Charles de Castelbajac for Men from 1982. At least if there are, I haven't seen them, is the problem. So I really feel like part of me, the bigger part that drives me, is to do these videos that are thankless. You know, these thankless reviews. These are the reviews that no one else is doing, because it doesn't get free bottles sent to you, right? It doesn't get the views. Whenever you upload these videos, like 25% of the people watch the video as compared to like a list or something like that. And so it kind of is a thankless job. But you know what? I feel driven to do it. I feel like that there's a hole in the YouTube fragrance universe. So while everyone else is rushing out on the hamster wheel trying to get the newest thing, I'll be going back in time and doing some of those vintage reviews, which I love. So, so that's why I say I think I have many more years of doing this with you guys. I know I've seen some channels come and I end up loving them, and then they like burn out and they disappear. And so I have no plans on that happening. But the you know, samples and the kind packages that you guys send and the kind words in the comments, it really means a lot. It really does lift me up. So thank you again. Everyone have a great evening. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Bye-bye.